Hi everybody, this is the last section in chapter 5. It is 5-6, and we're going to look at inequalities in two triangles this time instead of just one. And we're going to mainly focus on the Hinge theorem in this section. Okay, so if you recall, in the last section we talked about inequalities with one single triangle. Now we're going to compare two triangles together. And this is going to be called the Hinge Theorem. And again, think of like the hinges on a door and the angles that it makes, or the triangles you can make from that. All right, next we're going to talk about formally define the Hinge Theorem. And the Hinge Theorem says if two sides of one triangle are congruent to two sides of another triangle. So we know that two sides in one triangle are the same as two sides in another triangle. And the included angles are not congruent. So the angles between those two sides are not congruent. Then the longer third side is opposite the larger included angle, which again makes sense. The longer side is going to be opposite the larger angle. So here, if we use our Hinge theorem, we want to figure out which statement must be true. And I can see here that I know that SA is congruent to YO. And then I also know, based on the tick marks, that AK is congruent to OU. Now, the angles between the two are different. We have a 90-degree angle here and a 70-degree angle here. So with the Hinge theorem, which side is longer? Is it going to be SK or YU? And again, the longer side is opposite the larger angle. So that means that my longer side is going to be opposite my 90-degree angle, and it's going to be SK. So if we look at our choices, we are going to say we know that SK is greater than YU. So it would be C for our answer there. Okay, now they want us to choose the only possible measure based on the ones given for angle A. Again, I know that side AB is congruent to DE, and side AC is congruent to DF based on that tick marks. And then I know that angle D is 45 degrees. I do not know angle A, but that's the one we're trying to figure out. However, I do know that the side opposite the 45-degree angle is 6 units, and the side opposite angle A is 5 units. So 5 is less than 6. That means that the angle for angle A, because 5 is smaller than 6, this angle is going to have to be smaller than 45 degrees. So if I look at my three choices, 55 is definitely out. It can't be 45 because it can't be the same, unless if this was 6 units, it would be 45, but it's not, it's smaller. So that only leaves angle A. It has to be 35 degrees. All right, so here we are going to look at an application of the Hinge theorem. Sometimes when you go to amusement parks, they have rides that swing out and opposite sides go opposite directions. This is the case at Knott's Berry Farm. It has the swing ride called the Screamin' Swing, and it stands over 60 feet tall, and the riders are air-launched. According to the diagram, which riders are farther from the base? The riders on the side of AD, so this side, or the riders on the side of DB. And again, I know AD and DB are the same because when the ride's not in motion, the riders are the same length, or the arms are the same. And then the post that holds up the ride is the same length. It's 60 feet long or tall. Okay, so they measured the angle. When A was out, the angle was 62 degrees. And when side B was out, it was 54 degrees. Which side is further out? Hopefully, you said the riders on AD, because they are further from the base, because 62 degrees is bigger than 54. So that means that the length of A to C is wider or longer than the length of BC. Okay, the last thing we're going to do is now we're going to find the possible range values for x. And that is, in this case, going to be, the x is going to be in our measure of angle SUT. So we need to find an upper limit and a lower limit. Here, I do have two triangles. So here's one triangle, and then here's the other one. I also am given that RU is the same as UT, and then through our reflexive property, I know that US is congruent to US. So that means I can use my Hinge theorem here, because this angle is 60 degrees, this side is 15. This angle, it's 5x minus 20, and it's 10. So that means, which is the smaller angle? Angle 60 or the 5x minus 20? Hopefully, you said the 5x minus 20. And that's what we're going to use to write our inequality. I'm going to move to the next slide so I have a little more space to work. Okay, so here's our picture again, just a little bit bigger. We do know that the 5x minus 20 is going to be less than the 60 degrees. So when I want to find my upper limit for my range, I'm going to take my equation. I'm going to take my 5x minus 20, and I know that that has to be less than 60 degrees because it's opposite a smaller side than the 60 degree angle. So now I'm going to solve that inequality by I'll add 20 to both sides. And we get 5x is less than 80, divide by 5, and x is equal to 16, not equal to, excuse me, it is less than. Okay. Now, I need a range. I only have one number so far. That's my upper range. Now, if you think an angle measure, okay, it's got to be less than 60, but it also has to be greater than 0, because any angle can't be 0 degrees. So now we're going to take our 5x minus 20. We're going to write a new inequality, and we're going to say it's greater than 0. And now we're going to solve this one. I'll add 20 to both sides. And I'll have 5x is greater than 20. I'll divide by 5. And x is greater than 4. And then again, just like we did before in 5,5, when we write it as a range, we have a lower number and a higher number. So x will go in the middle. And your arrows, your inequality arrows, always point in the same direction, point towards the left. Put the smallest amount on the left and the highest amount on the right. So the value of x, what I can plug into x to get a degree measure, it can be anything greater than 4, but less than 16. So that would be my range of values using my Hinge theorem.